There's a story about Marcus Aurelius that most people don't know. In the final years of his reign, one of his most trusted generals, a man named Avidius Cassius, declared himself emperor while Marcus was still alive. Cassius spread rumors that Marcus had died, rallied legions in the east, and prepared for civil war. Marcus was betrayed by someone he had elevated, someone he had trusted with the security of the empire. And then, before Marcus could even confront him, Cassius was assassinated by his own officers. Off no trial, no confrontation, no explanation. Marcus wrote to the Senate asking them not to punish Cassius's family. He wrote that he wished Cassius had lived so that Marcus could have forgiven him in person. He wanted to offer mercy, he wanted to understand, he wanted closure. But Cassius was already dead, and Marcus had to carry that wound, the betrayal, the questions, the unspoken words, without ever receiving an apology, an explanation, or even the chance to look his betrayer in the eye. This is where most philosophy fails us. We are taught to forgive. We are told to let go. We are offered spiritual platitudes about release and peace. But what do you do when the person who hurt you never says sorry? What do you do when they don't even acknowledge what they did? What do you do when they're gone by death, by distance, by choice, and the apology you needed will never come? There is a particular kind of pain that comes from unapologized harm. It is not the sharp pain of the original wound. It is the dull, persistent ache of something unfinished, of a conversation that never happened, a recognition that was never given, a truth that was never spoken aloud. You carry it in your body, in the tightness of your chest when you think of them, in the way your jaw clenches when their name comes up, often the exhaustion that comes from replaying the same scene over and over in your mind, trying to make sense of what happened, trying to find the moment where things could have been different. The wound that waits is different from the wound that heals, because healing in the traditional sense requires acknowledgement. It requires the other person to see what they did, to name it, to take responsibility for it. But when that never comes, the wound doesn't close. It just settles into you, becomes part of your internal landscape, a geography of pain you navigate around but never quite leave behind. Marcus understood this. He lived it. His meditations are not the writings of a man who experienced easy forgiveness or simple resolution. They are the private journal of someone wrestling with betrayal, disappointment, and the cruelty of people he loved. He writes to himself again and again, trying to find a way to live with what cannot be changed. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. This is not pessimism. This is preparation. This is a man who has been hurt and is trying to protect himself from being destroyed by it. But here is what Marcus knew that most of us forget. The apology you're waiting for is not coming, and even if it did, it would not undo what was done. It would not erase the months or years you spent carrying this. It would not restore the version of yourself that existed before the betrayal. The person you were then is gone, and the person you are now has been shaped, in part, by what you endured without acknowledgement. This is the truth that sits at the center of unapologized harm. You cannot wait for them to release you. You must find a way to release yourself. We believe in closure the way we believe in happy endings. We think that if the person who hurt us would just admit it, just say the words, just look us in the eye and acknowledge the damage they caused, we could finally move on. We could finally be free. But closure is not something someone else gives you. It is something you build inside yourself when you realize that waiting for their recognition is keeping you tethered to them in ways you don't want to be. Marcus writes, you always own the option of having no opinion. There is never any need to get worked up or to trouble your soul about things you can't control. These things are not asking to be judged by you. Leave them alone. This sounds simple until you try to do it, until you're lying awake at 3 a.m, replaying every moment, every word, every silence that felt like violence. The illusion of closure is that it will come from outside you, that one day they will understand, one day they will feel remorse, one day they will reach out and give you the apology that will finally make sense of everything. But most of the time, that day never comes. And if it does come years later, after you've already done the work of healing yourself, it often feels empty. Because by then you've realized something crucial. You didn't need their words to move forward. You only thought you did. There's a story the Stoics told about a man who was wronged by his brother. For years he waited for an apology. He imagined the conversation they would have, the things his brother would say, the relief he would feel, but his brother never apologized. And eventually the man realized that his obsession with the apology was doing more damage than the original betrayal. He was giving his brother power over his peace, his sleep, his ability to be present in his own life. So he stopped waiting, not because he forgave his brother in some grand, noble way, but because he decided that his own peace mattered more than his brother's acknowledgement. He decided that waiting for closure was another form of suffering, and he was choosing to stop suffering. This is not the same as pretending the harm didn't happen. It is not spiritual bypassing or toxic positivity or any of the other ways we gaslight ourselves into ignoring our pain. It is the recognition that the person who hurt you may never understand what they did. They may never care. They may never even remember it the way you do, and you have to live your life anyway. Marcus Aurelius did not wait for Avidius Cassius to apologize. He could not. Cassius was dead, but Marcus still had to lead an empire. He still had to make decisions. He still had to govern with wisdom and clarity. He could not afford to be consumed by bitterness, so he did something radical. He forgave Cassius without Cassius asking for it, without Cassius deserving it, without Cassius even being alive to receive it. This is the Stoic art of self-granted forgiveness. It is not about the other person. It is about you. It is about refusing to let their unacknowledged harm define the rest of your life. The best revenge is not to be like that, Marcus writes. Not to become bitter, not to become cruel, not to let their betrayal turn you into someone you don't recognize, because if you do, they win, not because they intended to win, but because they took something from you that you can never get back, your ability to be who you were before they hurt you. Self-granted forgiveness is not easy. It requires you to acknowledge the injustice fully, to name what was done to you, to feel the anger, the grief, the rage that comes from being wronged without apology. But then it requires you to do something almost impossible. It requires you to let go anyway, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to be free. There is a practice in Stoic philosophy called amor fati, love of fate. It means accepting everything that has happened to you, not because it was good, but because it was real, because it is part of your story now, because resisting it, replaying it, wishing it had been different, only prolongs your suffering. Marcus writes, "A cucumber is bitter. Throw it away. There are briars in the road. Turn aside from them. This is enough." Do not add, "And why were such things made in the world?" In other words, do not waste your life asking why someone hurt you. Do not exhaust yourself trying to make sense of cruelty. Some people are thoughtless. Some people are damaged. Some people will never see what they did to you. Throw it away. Turn aside. This is enough. But here is where it gets complicated, because throwing it away does not mean pretending it never happened. It means you stop carrying it into every new room you enter. It means you stop letting it poison your relationships with people who have done nothing to you. It means you stop waiting for the universe to balance the scales. The universe will not balance the scales. That is not how this works. Injustice does not always get corrected. Harm does not always get acknowledged. Some people live their entire lives without ever understanding the damage they caused. And you still have to find a way to live. There is a version of this story you tell yourself. In this version, one day they realize what they did. One day they feel the full weight of their actions. One day they reach out, broken and apologetic, and you get to decide whether to forgive them or not. This is narrative justice, and it almost never happens. Narrative justice is the idea that people get what they deserve, that wrongdoers suffer consequences, that victims receive validation, that the moral arc of the universe bends toward fairness. But Marcus knew better. He knew that life is not a story with clean resolutions. He knew that empires fall, good people suffer, and cruelty often goes unpunished. Everything is only for a day, both that which remembers and that which is remembered, he writes. meaning this: the person who hurt you will die, you will die, the memory of this harm will die. In the vast scope of time, this moment, no matter how significant it feels to you, is a flicker. And you can spend your entire flicker waiting for an apology, or you can spend it living. The trap of narrative justice is that it keeps you in the story. It keeps you checking their social media to see if they're suffering. It keeps you imagining scenarios where they finally understand it. Keeps you rehearsing what you would say if they ever reached out. And all of that keeps you tied to them. All of that keeps you from moving forward. Marcus warns against this. When you are distressed by an external thing, it's not the thing itself that troubles you, but only your judgment of it, and you can wipe this out at a moment's notice. Not the harm itself, but your judgment of what it means. Your belief that you need their acknowledgement to move on. Your conviction that without their apology, you cannot heal this. Is the judgment you can wipe out, not the memory of what happened, not the fact that it was wrong, but the belief that your healing depends on them. There is a word in Stoic philosophy that sounds cold until you understand it: apatheia. It does not mean apathy in the modern sense, emotional numbness or detachment. It means freedom from destructive passions. It means not being ruled by things outside your control. Marcus practiced this every day. He had to. He was surrounded by people who disappointed him, betrayed him, used him. If he had let every betrayal consume him, he would have been useless as an emperor. So he trained himself to respond differently. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. This sounds impossible at first. How can you choose not to be harmed? The harm already happened. But Marcus is not talking about the event. He is talking about the story you tell about the event. He is talking about the meaning you assign to it. If you tell yourself that you cannot move forward until they apologize, you have given them power over your entire future. If you tell yourself that their silence means you are not worthy of respect, you have made their judgment more important than your own. If you tell yourself that you will never trust again because of what they did, you have let their damage define you. These are the stories that keep you trapped, and they are stories you can change. The practice of indifference is not about pretending you don't care. It is about recognizing what is within your control and what is not. Their apology is not within your control. Their understanding is not within your control. Their remorse is not within your control. But your response is, your healing is, your choice to live fully despite what they did is. Marcus writes, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth by which no one was ever truly harmed." This is the posture of someone who has stopped needing to be right, stopped needing validation, stopped needing the world to confirm his version of events. He seeks truth, and the truth is this: you were harmed, it was wrong, and you can heal anyway. Here's what no one tells you about healing from unapologized harm. It is not a single moment. It is not a decision you make once and then you're done. It is a practice. A daily returning to yourself, a daily choice to stop waiting. Some days you will wake up and feel free. Some days you will wake up and the wound will be fresh again, as if no time has passed. This is normal. This is not failure. This is what it means to be human. Marcus writes, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The fact that they never apologized becomes the very thing that forces you to find strength you didn't know you had. The fact that you did not receive closure becomes the reason you learn to create it yourself. The fact that they never acknowledged your pain becomes the catalyst for you to acknowledge it, to honor it, to carry it forward, not as a burden, but as evidence of what you survived. Healing without acknowledgement means you stop outsourcing your peace. You stop waiting for external validation to give you permission to move on. You stop believing that their apology would somehow undo the months or years you spent suffering. Because even if they apologized tomorrow, it would not change what you already endured. It would not give you back the sleep you lost, the relationships you sabotaged because you were too hurt to trust, the versions of yourself you abandoned because you did not feel worthy of protection. All of that is yours to reclaim, not through their words, but through your own. There is a meditation Marcus practiced when he felt overwhelmed by betrayal. He would remind himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength, not power over what they did, not power over whether they feel sorry, but power over how you carry it, power over whether it defines you, and slowly through repetition, through daily practice, through the Stoic discipline of returning to what is within your control, you begin to heal. Not because they gave you closure, but because you stopped needing it from them. Marcus Aurelius died in 180 AD, likely from illness, possibly from plague. He spent his final years on military campaigns, far from Rome, surrounded by the same kinds of men who had betrayed him throughout his reign. He never received the apologies he might have wanted. He never got the acknowledgment he deserved for the mercy he extended. But in his private writings, in the meditations he never intended anyone to read, there is a kind of peace, not the peace of resolution, not the peace of justice served, but the peace of someone who learned to live without needing those things. When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love, even after betrayal, even after harm, even after the people you trusted failed you. You are still here, you are still alive, and that is enough. The person who hurt you may never apologize, they may never understand, they may live their entire life without ever feeling remorse, and you will live yours anyway. You will wake up in the morning and breathe and think and love. You will stop waiting for them to release you. You will release yourself, not because it is easy, not because it is fair, but because your life is too precious to spend it waiting for someone else to give you permission to live it. This is the Stoic art of healing from people who never apologize. It is not forgiveness in the traditional sense. It is not closure in the way you imagined. It is something quieter, something harder, something more yours. It is the decision to stop letting their silence shape your days, to stop giving them power over your peace, to carry what happened, not as a wound that waits, but as a scar that proves you survived. And in that survival, in that choice to live fully despite what was never acknowledged, you find something the apology could never have given you. You find yourself not the person you were before they hurt you, but the person you became because you learned to heal without them. That person is stronger. That person is wiser. That person knows that peace does not come from others. It comes from within, and no one can take that from you.